They laughed when the captain told them to leave the owner's suite. So they showed him the deed to the entire fleet. Marcus and Simone Whitfield weren't supposed to be there. At least that's what Captain Brant thought. Suite 1001, the Royal Deck, the most exclusive cabin on the Oceanic Star, a luxury cruise liner that cost more per night than most people made in a month. Marble floors, floor-to-ceiling windows, a private balcony with a hot tub, and a butler on call 24/7. Wasn't just a room, it was a statement. And when Captain Henrik Brandt walked in and saw two black faces standing where he expected white ones, his first instinct wasn't to welcome them. It was to question them. Marcus Whitfield, 52, stood near the window in a linen shirt and tailored slacks, holding a glass of champagne. His wife, Simone, 49, sat elegantly on the cream sofa, flipping through a leather-bound guest services menu. They looked relaxed. They looked like they belonged. But Captain Brandt didn't see it that way. He knocked twice on the open door, then stepped inside without waiting for an invitation. His uniform was pristine, white with gold trim, medals on his chest, a man who commanded ships and expected deference. "Excuse me," he said, voice clipped. "I believe there's been a mistake." Marcus turned slowly, eyebrows raised. Simone looked up from her menu. Captain Brandt scanned the room like he was searching for evidence. "This suite is reserved for the ship's ownership group and VIP guests. I'll need to see your boarding credentials." Marcus set his glass down on the marble counter. "We checked in 2 hours ago. Everything was confirmed." The captain's jaw tightened. "I understand, but this particular suite requires executive clearance. I'm going to need to verify with guest services." Simone stood, smoothing her dress. "We've already been verified. 3 times, actually. Once at the port, once at the gangway, and once by your head steward when we arrived." Captain Brandt didn't move. His eyes flicked between them, calculating, dismissive. "Still," he said, "I'll need to confirm." Marcus folded his arms. "You're saying we don't belong here." "I'm saying," the captain replied carefully, "that mistakes happen, and I'd rather resolve this now than later." The air in the room shifted. Simone's expression hardened, but she didn't raise her voice. She never had to. "What kind of mistakes are you referring to, Captain?" He hesitated just long enough to give himself away. "Booking errors, system glitches, people ending up in suites they didn't pay for." Marcus smiled, but it wasn't warm. "We paid, in full, months ago." Captain Brandt pulled out a tablet from under his arm and tapped the screen a few times. His confidence flickered. "Let me just pull up the manifest." "Take your time," Simone said. "We're not going anywhere." But what the captain found on that screen would flip everything upside down. Because Marcus and Simone Whitfield didn't just book the suite. They owned the company that built the ship, and every other ship in the fleet. Marcus Whitfield grew up in New Orleans in the 9th Ward, where flooding wasn't a maybe, it was a when. His parents ran a small cleaning service that barely kept them afloat. His mother, Lorraine, worked doubles at a hotel near the French Quarter. His father, Samuel, drove a delivery truck and fixed engines on the side. Money was tight, but lessons were plenty. Work hard, stay sharp, don't wait for permission. Marcus was the kid who saved every dollar from odd jobs, bought his first car at 16, a rusted Chevy, and flipped it for double a month later. By 18, he was buying broken-down boats and reselling them to fishermen. By 25, he owned a small fleet of charter vessels in the Gulf. By 35, he'd expanded into freight shipping, moving cargo up and down the Mississippi and into international waters. He didn't have an MBA. He had instinct, grit, and a refusal to be told no. Simone came from a different world, but one just as demanding. Raised in Atlanta, daughter of a surgeon and a civil rights attorney, she'd gone to Spelman, then Harvard Business School. She could have worked anywhere, Goldman Sachs, McKinsey, but she wanted to build, not just consult. She met Marcus at a shipping expo in Miami. He was pitching a logistics software idea to investors who weren't listening. She was the only one in the room who asked a follow-up question. 3 months later, they were business partners. 2 years after that, they were married. Together, they built Whitfield Maritime Group from a mid-sized freight operation into one of the largest privately owned shipping companies in the Western Hemisphere. They moved everything: cars, electronics, pharmaceuticals, relief supplies, contracts with governments, NGOs, and Fortune 500 companies. But their crown jewel was the luxury cruise division, Oceanic Prestige Lines. 5 ships, tens of thousands of passengers a year, destinations across the Caribbean, Mediterranean, and Pacific. The Oceanic Star was the flagship, the newest, the most advanced. And the Whitfields had personally overseen its design from the engine room to the owner's suite. The same suite Captain Brant was now trying to kick them out of. The captain stared at his tablet, scrolling, tapping, scrolling again. His face went from confident to confused to pale. Marcus watched him carefully. Simone sipped her champagne, unbothered. Finally, Captain Brant looked up. His voice had lost its edge. "It says here the suite is registered under Whitfield Maritime." Marcus nodded. "That's correct." The captain blinked. "And you are Marcus Whitfield, CEO." Simone raised her glass slightly. "Simone Whitfield, COO." The silence that followed was thick enough to cut. Captain Brant's mouth opened, then closed. He looked back at the tablet like it might offer him an escape route. I wasn't informed," he stammered. Marcus tilted his head. "Informed of what?" "That we'd be aboard our own ship." The captain's face flushed. "No, I mean, I was told the owners might visit this season, but I didn't realize." "You didn't realize we were black," Simone finished for him. Captain Brant froze. "That's not what I meant." "Isn't it?" she asked, voice calm but cutting. "Because you walked in here, saw us, and immediately assumed we didn't belong. You didn't ask our names, you didn't check the registry first. You just decided." He stammered again, tried to recover. "I apologize if it came across that way. It's just protocol to verify." "Protocol," Marcus repeated. "Do you verify every guest in every suite? Or just the ones who don't look like what you expect?" Captain Brant had no answer. His tablet hung limp in his hand. The confidence he'd walked in with was gone, replaced by the dawning realization that he'd just insulted the people who signed his paycheck. Simone stood and walked toward him slowly, heels clicking on the marble. "Let me be clear, Captain. We don't need to prove anything to you, but you just proved something to us." He swallowed hard. "Mrs. Whitfield, I truly apologize. I'll make sure this doesn't." She raised a hand. "We'll discuss what happens next, but right now you're going to leave our suite." He nodded quickly, retreating toward the door. Marcus called after him, "And Captain, close the door on your way out." The door clicked shut. Simone turned to Marcus, exhaling slowly. He shook his head, half amused, half exhausted. "Every single time." She sat back down. "You'd think by now. But they don't learn," Marcus said. "Not until it costs them. And this time it might." Because what happened next wasn't just about an apology, it was about accountability. The next morning the ship was at sea, cutting through calm blue water under a cloudless sky. Passengers filled the pool deck, the buffet, the casino. Everything looked perfect. But behind the scenes, tension rippled through the crew. Word had spread fast. The couple in Suite 1001 wasn't just wealthy. They were the owners, and the captain had tried to remove them. By mid-morning, the ship's hotel director, a sharp woman named Claudia Reyes, knocked on the Whitfield's door. She looked nervous. "Mr. and Mrs. Whitfield, I wanted to personally apologize for yesterday's incident. It was completely unacceptable." Marcus gestured for her to sit. She did, perched on the edge of the chair. "Captain Brant has also asked to meet with you privately," she continued. "He's mortified." "I'm sure he is," Simone said. "But mortified isn't the same as accountable." Claudia nodded quickly. "We're reviewing protocol. This won't happen again." Simone leaned forward. "How many other black guests have been questioned on this ship?" Claudia hesitated. "I don't have those numbers offhand." "That's the problem," Marcus said. "You don't track it, so you don't see the pattern." Claudia looked down. "You're right. We should. We will." Marcus stood, walked to the window. The ocean stretched endlessly. He'd built this, designed it, funded it. And still, someone looked at him and saw a threat. He turned back to Claudia. "Set up a meeting, full senior staff, captain included, tomorrow morning." She nodded. "Of course." "And Claudia," Simone added, "this isn't just about an apology tour. We're making changes, real ones." Claudia left and Marcus sat back down beside his wife. "You thinking what I'm thinking?" he asked. Simone smiled, just a little. "Oh, I'm way past thinking." The meeting took place in the ship's executive conference room, a sleek space with leather chairs and a long glass table. Captain Brant sat at one end, stiff and silent. Beside him were the hotel director, the chief officer, the head of guest services, and the cruise line's regional VP who'd flown in by helicopter that morning. Marcus and Simone entered last. The room stood. They didn't smile. "Sit," Marcus said. Everyone sat. He remained standing. Simone took a seat at the head of the table, directly across from the captain. "Let's be clear about why we're here," Marcus began. This isn't about hurt feelings. It's about a culture that allows assumptions to override policy, that sees certain people as out of place and acts on that bias without question. Captain Brandt opened his mouth. Marcus held up a hand. I'm not finished. The room went silent. Yesterday, my wife and I were treated like trespassers in a suite we own on a ship we own by a man we employ. That's not a one-off mistake. That's a symptom. Simone pulled out a folder, slid it across the table. Inside were printed complaints, incident reports, passenger surveys. We've been reviewing feedback for the past year, she said. Complaints from black passengers about being followed by security, about being questioned at bars they've paid to access, about staff assuming they're in the wrong section. The regional VP paled. We weren't aware. You weren't looking, Marcus corrected. The chief officer spoke up. We have diversity training. Once a year, Simone said. A 2-hour video, that's not training. That's checking a box. Captain Brandt finally spoke, his voice hoarse. I take full responsibility for my actions. I was wrong. I let my assumptions guide me, and I'm deeply sorry. Marcus looked at him. Are you sorry you did it or sorry you got caught? The captain flinched. Both, he admitted quietly. At least that's honest, Simone said, but honesty without change is just noise. She stood now, commanding the room. Here's what's going to happen. First, we're overhauling staff training. Real scenarios. Implicit bias workshops. Quarterly, not annually. Second, we're creating an independent reporting system for passengers who experience discrimination. Third, we're auditing every complaint from the last 3 years and reaching out to those guests directly. The VP nodded quickly. We can implement that. Good, Marcus said, because if we don't, someone else will. And it'll be our competitors using our failure as their marketing. He let that sink in. Then he looked at Captain Brandt. As for you, the captain sat up straighter, bracing himself. You're suspended 2 weeks, no pay. You'll complete the new training program in full before you return to duty. And if there's another incident like this under your command, you're done. Brandt nodded, jaw tight. Understood. Marcus wasn't finished. You're also going to write a personal letter to every black crew member on this ship. Not an email, a letter, explaining what you did, why it was wrong, and what you're doing to change. The captain's eyes widened, but he didn't argue. Yes, sir. Simone added one more thing, and you're going to read it aloud at the next crew meeting. Captain Brandt looked like he wanted to disappear, but he nodded. The meeting ended. The staff filed out, shaken. Only Marcus, Simone, and the VP remained. The VP exhaled slowly. That was necessary, but it's going to make waves. Good, Marcus said. Let it. Because if we don't make waves, nothing moves. The VP left. Marcus and Simone stood alone in the conference room, looking out at the endless ocean. You think it'll stick? Simone asked. Marcus shrugged. Some of it will, some won't. But we made it loud enough that ignoring it isn't an option anymore. She took his hand. I'm proud of us. Me too, he said, even when it's exhausting, especially then. That evening they had dinner on their private balcony. The sun set in shades of orange and pink. The ocean rocked gently beneath them. A steward brought their food, a young man named Carlos who'd worked on the ship for 2 years. He set the plates down carefully, then hesitated. Mr. and Mrs. Whitfield, I just wanted to say thank you. Marcus looked up. For what? For what you're doing. A lot of us have seen things, felt things, but we didn't think anyone cared. Simone smiled gently. We care. Carlos nodded, eyes a little misty, and left quietly. Marcus cut into his steak. You know this is just the beginning, right? Simone raised her glass. I'm counting on it. 3 days later the story broke. Not from the Whitfields, but from a crew member who'd leaked it to a maritime industry blog. The headline read, Luxury Cruise Owners Confront Captain After Being Racially Profiled on Their Own Ship. It spread fast. Twitter, Reddit, LinkedIn. News outlets picked it up. CNN ran a segment. The Washington Post wrote an op-ed. Oceanic Prestige Lines was flooded with calls, some supportive, some outraged, most just curious. The Whitfields didn't hide. They released a joint statement. Discrimination has no place in our company, on our ships, or in our industry. We're taking action not because it's good PR, but because it's right. We expect more from our team, and we're holding ourselves accountable first. The response was overwhelming. Passengers canceled bookings in protest, not of the Whitfields, but of the old culture. Others booked cruises specifically to support them. Competitors watched closely. Some followed suit with their own policy changes. Others stayed quiet, hoping it would blow over. It didn't. 2 weeks later, Captain Brant returned to duty. He was quieter, more careful. He read his letter at the crew meeting, voice shaking, and apologized in front of 200 people. Some forgave him, others didn't. But everyone knew the message: behavior has consequences. The Whitfield stayed aboard for the rest of the cruise. They ate in the dining room with other guests. They attended the shows. They tipped generously and listened when staff spoke to them, and everywhere they went, people watched. Not with suspicion this time, with respect. On the last night, a young black girl, maybe 8 years old, approached their table with her parents. She was shy, clutching a stuffed dolphin. Her mother nudged her forward. "Go ahead, baby." The girl looked up at Simone. "Are you the one who owns the ship?" Simone smiled. "I am. One of them anyway." The girl's eyes went wide. "That's so cool." Simone knelt down to her level. "What's your name?" "Arya." "Well, Arya, one day you can own a ship too, or a plane, or anything you want." The girl grinned. "Really? Really," Marcus added. "Don't let anyone tell you otherwise." Arya's parents thanked them, voices thick with emotion, and walked away. Simone stood, blinking back tears. Marcus put his arm around her. "Moments like that," he said quietly. "That's why we did it." She nodded. "And why we'll keep doing it." When they disembarked in Miami, a small crowd had gathered. Some held signs: "Thank you for standing up. We see you." Others just clapped. Marcus and Simone walked through it all, hand in hand, heads high. They didn't do interviews. They didn't wave. They just walked. Because they'd already said everything that needed to be said. A week later, back in their New Orleans office, Marcus sat across from his legal team. They were drafting new policies for the entire fleet. Stricter hiring standards, bias audits, passenger advocacy roles. "It's going to cost us," his CFO said. "A lot." Marcus didn't blink. "Then we'll pay it, because the cost of doing nothing is worse." Simone walked in, phone in hand. "You're going to want to see this." She turned the screen toward him. It was an email from the International Maritime Association. They wanted Marcus and Simone to keynote their annual conference. The topic: leadership, equity, and accountability in the cruise industry. Marcus smiled. "Now that's a room I want to be in." They accepted. 3 months later, they stood on a stage in front of 2,000 industry professionals, ship owners, captains, hospitality executives. Marcus spoke first. "We didn't set out to make headlines. We set out to take a vacation. But what happened reminded us that owning a business isn't enough. You have to shape its culture. And culture starts with who you hold accountable when things go wrong." Simone took the mic. "Change isn't comfortable, it's not fast, but it's necessary. And if you're waiting for permission to do the right thing, you're already too late." The room erupted in applause. Not everyone agreed, but everyone listened. After the conference, dozens of companies reached out. Some wanted consulting, others wanted partnerships. A few just wanted to say thank you. The Whitfields didn't take every meeting, but they took the ones that mattered. And slowly the industry began to shift. Not everywhere, not all at once, but enough to notice. Back home, Marcus and Simone sat on their porch watching the sun set over the bayou. "You think we made a difference?" Simone asked. Marcus thought about Arya, about Carlos, about every person who'd reached out to say me too or thank you. "Yeah," he said, "I think we did." She leaned into him. "Good, because I'm not done yet." Neither am I, and they weren't. Because real change doesn't happen in a moment. It happens in 1,000 small decisions, in the rooms where no one's watching, in the policies no one reads until they need them, in the voices that refuse to stay quiet. Marcus and Simone Whitfield didn't tear down the system, but they made it uncomfortable. They made it answerable. And sometimes that's where the work begins. If you've ever been made to feel like you didn't belong in a space you earned, don't shrink. Stand tall. Speak up, and when you can, build something so undeniable that they have to make room.